Hello, good morning, and welcome everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. We have got the wonderful Marina Gask with us, who knows everything there is to know about press, having worked for places like Red, Just 17, and recently at the Telegraph. So hello, Marina, and welcome.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Good to have you here. So today you're going to talk all about how we can make the press fall in love with you and your small business, which is an excellent topic. We've got lots of exciting things coming up, and I'm sure that you'll have lots of questions for Marina. So don't worry, we will have time at the end to ask those to her. Pop them in the Q&A section at the bottom, and we will make sure that we save those at the end. Do get involved in the chat, say hello, let us know where you are from today. We always love to hear from you. I want to say a massive thank you to Lloyds Bank Academy for partnering with us on this webinar and making it possible. Marina, I think that is probably enough from me. So I will hand over to you now, and I will see you at the end for some questions.
Thanks very much. Thank you. Morning, everyone. If you can pop in the chat the nature of your business, just 2 words to describe what your business is. It really helps me to have a sense of the kind of businesses we're dealing with here. So that would be really helpful. Thank you. So I'm Marina Gask, and I am a journalist. I've been a journalist for about 38 years. And today we're going to talk about how to make the press fall in love with you, and how identifying what journalists need to makes their job easier and makes them fall in love with you forever. Because basically, if you become the kind of entrepreneur who knows how to respond quickly to stories in the press and to offer your expertise, your case studies, your ideas, your opinions, that journalists will love you and will come back to you again and again. I've seen this happen many times, and it's really worth knowing that that's how things work. Okay. So apart from being a journalist, I'm a press and visibility coach. So I advise businesses on how to get press coverage, how to make themselves more visible to the press, how to attract press opportunities. I'm also a copywriter, and I'm co-founder and editor of Audrey Online, which is a platform for women who are looking for inspiration to make a big change, to launch a business. It's full of great stories, and it's also full of advice. So please take a look. Okay. So my background is teen mags originally. I started out on the much loved Just 17 as a production assistant many moons ago. And I then worked on the launch of Sugar, which was amazing. I loved it so much. And I was features editor. I went on to become editor. I also was editor of More magazine, and Top Santé and John Lewis Edition. And I've worked on loads of magazines, many of which sadly are no longer with us, but Cosmopolitan, Glamour, Grazia, Red, Marie Claire. Actually, most of them are still with us, but many have sadly gone. And I now write a lot for newspapers. I write a lot for the Telegraph. That's me up on the right there, talking about redundancy and how and ageism in the working world. And also there's a piece about a lovely entrepreneur called Jen Parker, who told her story in the press. And it's an example, you know, of how small businesses can get themselves into the press and raise their visibility. Okay. So I do copywriting for solopreneurs and also big businesses like Bodyform and Hasbro. I've worked for Flow, for Peppy. So I write articles for apps and health and HR apps. I've done blog and press release coaching for charities, SMEs, and even fledgling MPs at Westminster. Look, there's me looking slightly terrified at Westminster, about to deliver a talk. I've done ghostwriting of business books, and I love helping people who are on a mission to, you know, to change the world or to change their small part of the world. Those are the kind of businesses I really love to work with. Okay. So why get press coverage? Think about what you want to achieve. You want shareable content that you can share again and again. I'm saying again and again because a lot of people seem to think that once they're in the press, that's it. They don't need to do anything else. Actually, no, you need to share that content yourself everywhere, and make sure, that it boosts your visibility, and it also boosts your Google rankings. Press coverage gets you credibility. It can position you as an expert, as a thought leader, a mover and shaker. It brings you to the attention of people who may be interested in, the work that you do, who may want to work with you. It shows a different side of yourself. People often ask me, what's the point of telling a health story about myself, or talking about my divorce, or, an aspect of themselves that maybe doesn't relate to their business? It still shows a different side of you. It enables your potential clients to know, like, and trust you, which is exactly how we are all meant to work, to find, to find clients that love us. It gets their logo on your website, so you can, if you're in the Daily Telegraph, you put it on your website, and it boosts your authority, your credibility. It shows people that you're a force to be reckoned with, and it boosts your Google rankings, of course. Oops, that's got a bit mad. And it raises your visibility among potential clients, and also the wider media. So don't forget that journalists are always looking out for, potential stories. If they spot you in, another publication, it's like that might be an opportunity to find out more about what you do, about the business that you serve. So what makes you press-worthy? Insightful opinions on the zeitgeist, and I put controversial opinions even better. So think about the zeitgeist this week and last week, actually. I'm sure you're all aware of the story around Greg Wallace. And at the point when that story broke, think about all the different ways that you could comment on that. You could be a greengrocer who's offended at the notion that all greengrocers behave like Greg Wallace. You could be a middle-class woman of a certain age with a lot to say on that subject. You could have been at school with him. You could be a victim of sexual harassment who wants to talk about. Somebody said, "What's the zeitgeist?" Sorry, the zeitgeist is kind of what's going on in the world today. So you could have been a victim of sexual harassment who has a lot to say on the impact it's had on your life. You could be someone who works in a kitchen who says that banter is the norm in a kitchen. You could have survived reputational damage yourself. You could be a psychotherapist who works with people who've experienced reputational damage or sexual harassment. You could be someone with just really strong opinions and who actually thinks it's a witch hunt and it's ridiculous and we should all just get over ourselves. So that's just one example of how you can make your opinions and your lived experience relevant to something that's huge in the press and that journalists want to write about. Do you have a powerful story that will move and inspire? Most people do. Everyone says to me, I don't have a story. There's nothing interesting about me. I say nonsense. Everyone has a powerful story if they really dig deep into their lives. You may feel like you don't want to share something difficult about your life, and that's fine. Do not do that. But, think about stories, experiences that you've had that could in some way enhance your business story, or that just make you interesting. Think also about unique expertise that you have as a result of the business that you run. Or do you run a business that solves a new or perennial problem that you think the press would be interested in? Have you written an attention-grabbing book? Or do you have a podcast, or have you done a TED Talk that really addresses something very important and interesting? Can you tie the book, the podcast, or the TED Talk in with something that's happening in the news today, now, this week? Can you, or have you, run a campaign, event, or survey that ties in with something that really matters to you? Have you you know, are you really passionate about helping the homeless? Are you passionate about young women's confidence, young men's mental health? You know, if these are subjects that you are passionate about, you may make candles, but the fact that you have decided to, I don't know, donate a percentage of your profits to a charity, or maybe to offer an internship to a young person that needs a leg up in the world, that would make an amazing press story. So do not, don't think that just because you make candles, you're not able to generate a press story. Timing. Is there something about you or your business that ties in with the annual calendar? There's so many ways that you can do this. I could spend an hour talking about this, but you know, everything from national days. So if you're a psychotherapist, you know, is it Men's Mental Health Month? If you're a if you make candles, have you made a special candle for Mother's Day? If it's Homelessness Month, help the homeless time, you know, is there a campaign that you're running that ties in with that? Think about the calendar, look at all the, you know, there's websites where all the national days of the year, all the national months of the year are detailed, and look at those and think, how can I tie in what I do with, sorry, the speaker is Marina. There's a mistake there. Yes, I am Marina Gask, not Maria. I don't know how that happened. Anyway, yes, I think that's it really. Timing, think about that. And having a micro niche is a really good idea because it makes you stand out. So here's an example: the mental health coach tackling Gen Z anxiety overwhelm via a radical technique. So you're not just a mental health coach, you're tackling a specific problem, and that gives you, you know, a real in when it comes to the zeitgeist, you know, to stories that are in the press that week. Okay. So be your own news hound. This is going to be painful to many of you, but it means getting up really early and scanning the media. So that's what journalists do. They, you know, if you work, for example, in the health sector, you get up at 6 a.m. and you look at what, you know, what are the health innovations, what are the health stories happening in the world that day that you can then pitch ideas about. So if you or your business are relevant to the day's stories, or if you can offer opinions or expertise or case studies or yourself as, you know, potential content for articles about whatever's in the media that week, and if you're available absolutely now, not next week, and please do not ever put yourself forward for something if you're miles away in Canada. This happened to me once where I was in touch with someone who was going to be a case study for me, and then I discovered that they actually weren't in the country, weren't available. It's really important to be available if you put yourself forward for a story. And this is how you make a journalist's job easier. You provide them with what they need exactly when they need it, because if you're a journalist who works in a particular area, you're going to be pitching stories. I'm a freelance journalist. I'm pitching stories all the time. I'm going to be pitching stories. And if somebody, so I'm just so distracted by the comments, I'm just having to try and ignore them. If you're, I can't remember what I was saying now. Yeah, you make the journalist job easier by being available and by offering your expertise or your case studies at the exact time that they need them, and then they'll come back to you again and again and again. So be prepared to pitch to journalists when an opportunity arises. Make sure you have a press release about yourself. Keep it concise. Make sure it's got a clear and impactful, make sure that you have a clear and impactful online profile. This is really important. It's not enough to just have a great press release and a great website. You also need to make sure that your, for example, LinkedIn profile, your other, you know, your profile on other social media platforms matches up with what it says in your press release. So if in your press release it says you're a dog groomer, Make sure it doesn't say on LinkedIn that you're a, personal trainer. This happens surprisingly often, that people don't give out a clear message about what it is that they do. And if they do multiple things, it can become very confusing. So you really need to think about how you get those things across, or do you just focus on one? Yes, you do. You just focus on one. Make sure that you have good quality labeled photos of yourself and of your products. It's great if you can do a professional photo shoot with one of the many fantastic professional photographers I imagine are in this group. But if you can't, make sure you have high res quality photos of yourself. If what you do is visually interesting, for example, if you're an artist, if you produce candles, sorry, I quick about candles, or fashion, include those in your photos of yourself, not just separate photos of your products, but have them in the background. Colourful photos, good quality high res, will always trump dull photos with no colour that don't really say much about what you do. Have case studies ready if relevant. So if, for example, you're a hypnotherapist and you've helped, victims of sexual harassment, and you are going to talk about them in a publication, do you have their permission to talk about it? Have you discussed that? Because obviously that can have legal implications. So check on that. Preparedness. So you need to respond quickly to opportunities, and you need ease of availability. A media pack is really handy for making an instant and impactful response, and I can help with media packs if anybody's interested. You also need to have contact details of relevant journalists. So this means, doing some research in advance to find the journalists who are relevant to your particular area. They may be freelance, they may be editors on specific publications. You can usually find these by Googling. However, I'm happy to help if anybody's interested. I do a package called Let's Get Pressworthy, where I do share the contact details of relevant journalists for your particular area. So do get in touch. Press release know-how, we're not done yet. Bit more work. So press release, make sure you have an attention-grabbing headline. Do spend some time on getting this right. Don't just make it bog standard, does what it says on the tin. Make it eye-catching. A quote, a surprise, something surprising, something that makes the journalist sit up and take notice. Start with a brief, punchy message that you want to share, stating why what you're telling them in the press release is relevant. So are there stats? Are there studies? Is it, sorry, I'm using that word again. Is it zeitgeisty? So is it relevant to the Greg Wallace story? Is it relevant to something Keir Starmer said today? Tie it in with what's happening in the world so that it's instantly obvious that what you're saying is of interest right now this week. Make it easy to skim read. So use bullet points. Do not send 2-page press releases with great big heavy paragraphs. Keep it to a page if you can. Use bullet points, bold up type in certain places, use quotes, perhaps making them italicized, make things stand out. Don't make it like a visual assault, but make it make the key points eye-catching. Bold, I've already said that. Bold up key facts. So things like the title of your book, names of celebrity clients, how to get hold of you. Don't overwhelm with information about you at the start. The information at the start of a press release needs to be why you need to read this right now. The information about you should be in an about section at the end of your press release, perhaps at the bottom. And include relevant images on your press release or attach them when you send it. Media interviews, how to prepare. So make a few notes in advance. What are the key points that you want to make? Really think about what you want to say and also what you don't want to say. bear in mind that a journalist is always going to want a juicy story. And, you know, they may push you to answer questions that you might not be happy answering. So do think about that in advance, what you're happy to say. Do your research on the journalist and the publication. So be aware of the type of articles the journalist tends to write, their style, and look into the section it's likely to appear in the publication. So you get a sense of how your story is likely to be presented. Request information in advance of the interview. So what is the premise of the article? Can they tell you who the other participants are going to be in the article? Are they going to be speaking to other experts or other case studies? This just gives you a sense of what it is that you're signing up for. Get permission from people you're mentioning. So if, for example, you're talking about your daughter's anorexia in a story, have you got your daughter's permission, and have you spoken to your ex-husband maybe, or ex-wife, and to make sure that that's not going to cause problems? And also do think about legal implications of talking about people in your story. Get contact details of the journalist so that you can, if afterwards you think, oh, I shouldn't have mentioned that, or oh, I forgot to say you can then email and just finalize those details. In the interview, be concise and say something new. And that's why it's really important to sort of make a few notes beforehand, so you've got something to say. You can't just go in with a vague idea. It needs to be something, very definite. So being in the media can have a magic wand effect on you. So what do you do now that you're a media star? Well, you bang on about it. You write a post about it everywhere, on LinkedIn. You write about it on Facebook. I mean, don't just say, oh, I'm so excited, I'm in the press. Obviously you are, but, include an excerpt, or talk about what it was like to be interviewed, or, how interested you were in the subject. Make it about the piece rather than how giddy you are to be in the press, if you are, of course. If you don't like it, if you don't really like the way it comes across, you kind of need to decide how bothered you are, because press is press. And, if it completely misrepresents you, then you need to get back to the journalist and say, this is actually untrue, I didn't say this, and, ask them to change it. However, if it just kind of makes you sound a bit of a show off, or, isn't quite what you thought it was going to be, you kind of need to decide, how bothered am I? Because you're still in the press, and you can even say in a LinkedIn post, I don't quite like the way I come across, but, nonetheless, I'm really proud that I got to share my story. You kind of need to decide how far you want to go with that. But yes, share, and share. As I said earlier, you really do need to share, and do it again, a few weeks later. Maybe you can tie it in with something else that's happened in the news that week. Thank the journalist online, liking and commenting on their posts. This is obviously good manners, but it also maintains a relationship with the journalist, which you can hopefully, use in the future. Don't be a stalker, but do keep them informed of your latest exploits. When I say them, I mean the journalist in question. If you have now launched a new program, a new service that you think they would be interested in, that might make a great press opportunity, let them know. Include an excerpt of the piece, of the article, in your next press release, and also any newsletters. And add as seen into your email signature. So as seen in the Daily Telegraph, as seen in Women and Home, to your email signature and website. This does really, boost authority and credibility. So that's the end of me. Well, it's not the end, because hopefully there'll be a few questions. I'd love to answer some. If you would like bespoke advice on how you can attract the media, how you can improve your online profile and position yourself as an expert in your field, details are at marinagask.co.uk, or you can contact me at marinagask@me.com. And I am offering a limited number of 1-hour consultations at a discounted rate of £100 for an hour of my time to talk about you and your press strategy. If you get in touch with me before midnight tonight, I will happily sign you up for one of those. And I'm also offering 10% off my Let's Get Press Worthy program and my 90 Days to Visibility program to anyone who has attended this workshop. So that's me for now.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Marina. That was an excellent presentation, and you did such a good job at answering all those questions coming into the chat as we went. So thank you for that.
It was daunting because I just kept seeing more and more, and I was just like, oh God, what do I do?
Coming thick and fast. Well, we have got some more questions, which I will get to in just a second. But before we do, I did want to share this slide with some key learnings and continued learning that you can do at the Lloyds Bank Academy website. So do scan this QR code. There's some key learnings on the screen there. You can find all of that information on their website. And we will also be sharing these links in the follow-up email with this webinar recording tomorrow. So do take a picture of the screen, take a scan of the QR code now to get to those. We would also love to hear your feedback. It's always great for us to know what you enjoy about these sessions, what else we can do, what else you want us to cover is really, really helpful for us there as well. So without further ado, I will move on to questions now. So I'm sure there are a lot of them waiting for you. Question 1. Somebody is wondering about how to promote 4 brands. Should they promote them all at once or individually?
Oh, I mean, it really depends on what the brands are, you know, whether they're all part of the same, the same product, or whether they're completely different. I would say if they're completely different, you need to do them separately. Yeah.
And maybe that's 4 different opportunities there as well, if you look at it that way.
It is 4 completely different opportunities. I mean, that if you have 4 brands, it means you're going to be spending a lot of time pitching to the press. You know, that does create a lot of extra work. You might want to decide that for a while you're just going to focus on one, you know, and really put a lot of effort into that, because it is, I mean, I really want to stress this. If you want to get into the press and you're not going to work with someone like me or a PR, you know, to help you, it is time consuming. You know, it's I'm not saying it's a second job, but you know, if it's something that you really want to do, you have to get up early and you have to work at it.
Absolutely. What is, in your opinion, is the best way to contact a journalist? Email, phone, Twitter, X, combination?
Oh, good question. Good question. I mean, I would say, I think social media is a good one if a journalist is doing covering a specific subject. You know, saying, I'm interested to know what people think about blah, 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 blah. You can then comment. Or, you know, if they are very outspoken, if the journalist is very outspoken in a particular area, or, you know, it has written about a particular subject recently, I think it's always a good idea to say, I've got loads to say on this. I would love to talk to you. Can I email you? Blah, blah, blah. But I receive press releases all the time from entrepreneurs and from PRs all the time, and you know, good press releases really do stand out. And I don't think phone is a good way to contact journalists at all. Personally, I think it's okay if you know the journalist already, if you have a working relationship already. I definitely think it's okay to phone. I think it's a good idea to ask, is it okay if I phone you? But personally, you know, someone phoned me last night when I was at a comedy event. I was about to walk in and somebody phoned me, a PR phoned me. This was at, you know, 8 p.m. It's probably not a good idea. It's
get your best in your free time at 8 p.m.
Journalists have a life too. I think it depends. You know, if they're working on something super urgent and they've said, I need case studies for this super urgently, I think it's fine to phone. But if otherwise, no, don't phone.
Maybe a best practice, give them your number and say, you're welcome to phone me if you like.
Yes, and I'm available right now. Yes, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Questions come in about the fashion industry. I find fashion journalists move on so fast. I spend a lot of time finding contacts, but within 12 months, most are obsolete. So I have to start all over again. What is the best way to contact magazines regarding new collections?
I'm not the best person to talk to about fashion, although I did edit women's magazines. Fashion was never my thing. I just think you have to be constantly staying on top of who's who. There's a service called Diary, which updates. I'd have to look into how you access it, but that gives information on who's moved to which publication, who's suddenly got a job at Grazia, or who's suddenly got a job at Vogue or wherever. That gives you that information so you can keep up to date. But I think you just have to keep checking social media to see who's moving where, and then looking them up. There's probably easier ways of doing it, but I don't know them because I'm not a fashion person.
It's always good practice, I say, to do a quick, fresh research, because as the question said, and you said, Marina, like, people move on fast and there's different people all the time, and to make sure it's really relevant, doing a quick search before you contact anyone, I'm assuming, is always good.
Exactly. And it's the same in features. It's not just fashion. People move on all the time. So, you may have a list of contacts from 3 years ago, and probably half of them are obsolete. Also, sadly, publications are always closing. I mean, I'm laughing. It's awful. My industry has kind of got into free fall. So it means, that a lot of the journalists that you may know from the past and may have been interviewed by in the past, may now be freelance themselves. But then look them up. If you've already got a relationship with them, if you've been interviewed by them in the past and got along with them, find them and say, what are you doing now? Can I help you?
Dan has asked, we send press releases out as a mailer. Should we send this as a one page with photos or as an attachment?
I think it's always a good idea, if what you do is visual, to include at least a photo on your press release of a boot or a handbag or whatever. Just because it looks great and it kind of grabs attention. But then also as attachments, a few examples. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I have to say, if you've written a book, or you're someone who does speaking engagements, and so your face is part of your, a big part of your brand, I would include a picture of yourself on your press release, or a picture of your book.
What is meant by labeled photos?
Oh, yes, this is my bugbear. So when I do a call out for case studies, I did one 2 weeks ago, I think, for the Telegraph. I get bombarded by people saying, I want to be included in this, and here are some photos of myself. And when I click on the photo, it doesn't say your name. It says XJ157 JPEG. Now, how am I supposed to know, when I then put all the photos in a folder to send to the editor to say, here are my case studies? How is anyone supposed to know who that's a photo of? That's all I'm saying. Just instead of a serial number or whatever, it needs to say your name on there. And if there's a few of you, number them. Sarah Edwards 1, Sarah Edwards 2. That's all I'm saying. It's really simple. And make sure they're high res. They might not get used in the publication. That might not be why the journalist is asking for photos. It may just be to see what you look like, and do I like, would you work well if we had 3 or 4 case studies? Would you work well in the mix? And please bear in mind that if you get rejected, it's not necessarily because they don't like the look of you. It might just be that you live in London and they've already got someone from London and they need someone else from Glasgow, or Belfast, or wherever.
My business is in the health and wellness space and is fairly new and still in development. Should I start with local press and go further afield? It also has a controversial name. Oh, I'm wondering what this name is now, John.
Oh, John, I want to hear more. I mean, I think it's always good to do some local press. It's a very, very good idea. And, yeah, I definitely start with local press, because nationals will often look at local press for stories, for things to follow up on.
Mhm.
I think it really depends on the nature of what you're doing. Somebody contacted me the other day about a campaign about some local woods. Should they be going to the national press? Should they be going to the local press? It's all about protecting wildlife, etc. And it's a really tricky one, because sometimes those stories can really turn into national stories. But I think start local is a good idea.
Yeah.
It also gives you practice. It gives you practice for being interviewed by journalists, writing press releases, understanding how press can work.
Great. Would you send a press release at a PDF as a PDF or a Word document? I've
Mm,
been
mm. I would actually, personally, because journalists have become quite nervous about clicking on things, as we all have. And so sometimes I would actually say it's better to paste the press release into the body of the email. So start your email with, "Hi, blah, blah, Carla," or whoever. "I thought you would be interested to hear about my blah, 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 blah." And that's literally all you need to say. Then your press release, paste your press release on, and then at the end say, "Hope to hear from you soon, blah, blah." And also don't forget to put in your email subject line something really eye-catching. So don't just say new handbag launched, say the it bag for blah blah, put something that's gonna, or the handbag that Dawn French can't get enough of, or just something that's gonna make the journalist sit up and listen.
When looking for journalists or press contacts in our industry, what job titles should we be looking for? Does it need to be an editor who makes the decision on what to write about?
Well, you want to be so if you are in the world of health, you want to be looking for the health editor or health commissioning editor. The editor of a newspaper is not going to be interested in receiving your press release. You need to be looking for the section, the relevant section. And the word commissioning, if it's words, if it's something like health or features or travel, you need to be looking for travel commissioning editor, because they are the people who are looking for new angles on things. So yeah, commissioning.
This is an interesting question that's just come in. Is it possible to get press coverage from a podcast? How would you go about that?
Oh, that's a tricky one. I think to be honest, I don't know. I genuinely don't know. However, I do know a couple of people that do run very successful podcasts, and I think eventually you can, yes, because you get so much great content, but you've got stories to tell. But also, if your podcast is a really genuinely unique thing, eventually, the news bubbles up, doesn't it? So yeah, I do think you can, but you need to have quite a big following. You need a big audience, I think, to achieve press coverage. Yes.
And maybe like your podcast would need to talk about something quite controversial, as you said.
Absolutely. If you're talking about something controversial, or if you're solving some big problem, if you're I don't know. I thought Cheryl's talk yesterday on AI was absolutely brilliant. So, if Cheryl were to start a podcast, oh God, I would so listen to that. Although I don't know if a podcast about AI would be that helpful. But anyway, you see what I'm saying? If someone's got a really, really unique and interesting take on something, then yes, I do think it could get in the press. But I think it's probably quite hard.
How would you go about sharing case studies from your website into a press release?
Well, first of all, you need to make sure you've got permission. You need to excerpt the case study. No journalist has the time to read a whole long case study. It needs to be an excerpt. It needs to be, when blah blah was divorcing her husband, she had no idea that blah blah would happen. And then that's all you need to say. You maybe just need a line saying, go to our website to find out more, or or the divorce lawyer in question would love to talk to you more about how women in this position can can find their way through. But yes, I would including case studies is a good idea, but keep them short. Don't include the whole case study.
Absolutely. Do you find that it's easier to get press coverage for product businesses over service businesses like HR?
Personally, I specialize in service businesses. I do not specialize in product businesses, and I am not an expert in answering this question. I personally find it easier to get service businesses in the press because they're answering a problem. Having said that, a lot of products answer a problem. The answer is I don't know, because I don't work in that field.
But it's definitely possible for all these service businesses to get press coverage, is what you're saying. You don't have to be a product business. You can definitely get press coverage as HR.
Absolutely, both. It really does depend on what you produce, and what's new about what you produce. Is it original? Is it unique? Is it surprising? Is it solving a problem? That's how you have to tackle your press releases. Make it sound, get across what's unique about what you're producing.
Excellent. Do you have any tips for a charity trying to get some press coverage?
Well, it depends on what the charity is, and what community are you serving? It's always more interesting to hear about the end users of the charity than the people running the charity. We always want to read those stories of people being helped, or animals being helped, or lives being saved or changed, or food banks being opened. We want to hear those stories, because that's what makes what the charity does come alive. If the founder of the charity or the intern on the charity has an interesting story to share, obviously that's relevant too. It really does depend.
Thank you very much. Lots of people have commented about setting up Google Alerts daily or weekly for catching up on coverage. Is that something you recommend? How did you suggest people track if they might have been in the press?
Yeah, I think Google Alerts is a very good idea. It's not something I do myself, I have to admit, but I have heard that that's a good way of tackling it. Yeah, I mean, I just Google things all the time. That's what journalists do. Spend their whole lives on Google.
Another question about case studies. Do you link case studies from your website directly or attach them separately? I think you may have covered this one, but do you want to clarify for Sophie how best to include case studies?
You could. I mean, I would just say, for more of this story, go to our website. That's what I would do. Yeah.
Fabulous. Oh, thank you so much, Marina. It's been such a wonderful session. Before we wrap up today, because we have come to the end, do you have any words of wisdom that you'd like to share?
Me, well, I would say if you really, really want to get press coverage, maybe make it something that you do a day a week, where you maybe get up early, you explore what's going on in the world, and think about ways that you can tie in what you do with that. I also think it's really important to use LinkedIn, or whichever platform you choose, to share your thoughts on something. There was someone the other day who wrote a really good post about the Greg Wallace thing. Sorry, I know I've gone on about that a lot, but it has been such a week for Greg Wallace, hasn't it? Bless him. And if you have something really interesting to say it on LinkedIn, and then if you are already connected to journalists on LinkedIn, and they see what you have to say. They may contact you and say, I would really love to hear some more about what you were saying there. So, you know, that, you know, LinkedIn is media too, and you know, social media is media too, and we all need to be vocal about what we think. If
Yeah.
we, you know, if we want to get in the press, really, we need to be thought leaders, don't we, in our particular field, and not be afraid to stand up for what we believe in. You know, if we work in a particular field where we're helping people, or you know, or wildlife or animals, or you know, a section of the community, then we need to kind of advocate for that particular community. So whenever there's a story to tell it on social media, and tell it, you know, get into the habit of writing press releases that excerpt that story, so you become known for that particular thing, and you become known for someone with opinions.
Fabulous. Oh, thank you so much, Marina. Some expert, amazing tips and tricks. There's so much love for you in the chat. So thank you so much.
Oh, that's good. Thank you. I just wanted to say, someone said they missed the email address to contact me. So it's marinagask@me.com. marinagask@me.com. So do contact me for the 1 hour consultation by midnight tonight. I would love to help you. Yeah, thanks very much. Yes, I am on LinkedIn, Marina Gask. It's quite simple. Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. Yeah. I'm always banging on about this stuff on LinkedIn. So yeah.
Amazing.
You'll find me there.
Thank you so much. And thank you to Lloyds for putting on this webinar with us today. There will be lots of links which will be sent to you in your email tomorrow along with this recording, so you can follow on your learning journey there. I will say goodbye to everybody. Thank you so much, and we hope to see you again really soon.
Thank you. Thanks very much, everyone.